When my father died, I expected grief. I expected long nights, silent mornings, and that hollow ache you feel when someone you love just isn't there anymore. What I didn't expect was betrayal, not from strangers, from my own family. You know, people always say death brings families closer. That's not what happened to mine, not even close. The day everything shifted, I remember standing outside my childhood home, the cold air biting my skin through my jacket. My palms were sweaty despite the chill. I had this knot in my stomach that refused to untangle. Something felt off, but I couldn't name it. Inside, behind those walls, my siblings were laughing, and I wasn't invited. My name's Emily. I'm 33, and up until that moment, I thought I had at least some place in my family. I was never the golden child, not like Rachel, my older sister, who always had this magnetic pull that made people listen, or Daniel, my younger brother, who played it safe and stayed quiet, which somehow kept him on everyone's good side. I was the one who left, the one who didn't follow the rules, the one who walked her own path and paid for it. But Dad was different. With him, I didn't have to explain myself. I could just be. And near the end, when he got sick, I came back. I dropped everything, left my apartment and my job in the city, and moved back in to take care of him. And I don't regret a second of it. Those last months with him, they were slow, painful, beautiful. Some mornings he couldn't talk, and other days he wouldn't stop. He'd tell me stories from his childhood, how he met Mom, how scared he was when Rachel was born because he didn't know how to be a father yet, and he'd smile when he talked about me, how I surprised him, how I saw the world differently. There was this moment, I remember it so clearly, when we were sitting on the back porch, just listening to the wind rustle through the trees. He turned to me, his voice hoarse, and said, "Emily, there's something I need you to keep safe. Promise me, okay?" He handed me a small, sealed envelope. It was heavy in my hand, like it carried something more than just paper. I asked him what it was, but he just gave me this soft, tired smile. "Just, when the time comes, give it to Mr. Halbert." That was our lawyer. I kept that envelope, tucked it away in the drawer next to my bed. I never opened it. I never even thought about it again, because back then, I was still hoping he'd get better. I wasn't ready to think about goodbyes. And then, he was gone. No dramatic ending, just one quiet night he closed his eyes and never opened them again. I sat there holding his hand long after the nurse had confirmed it, trying to feel something, anything, but I was numb. I thought the hardest part of losing my dad would be the silence he left behind, but it wasn't. It was the noise I heard days later, coming from the house. Rachel's voice, sharp and mocking, floating out through the open window as I stood frozen on the porch. "She doesn't deserve a dime," she said, laughing. "Finally, we got everything." Everything. My throat tightened, my hands shook. My heart, it didn't break, it collapsed. I wasn't just grieving anymore. Now I was angry. And as I took a step forward, something shifted inside me. I wasn't walking into that house as the forgotten sister anymore. Because in my pocket was that envelope? And what was inside? It was going to change everything. I remember stepping into that house, my childhood home, and realizing how unfamiliar it felt. It smelled the same, that mix of old wood, faint coffee, and the lavender potpourri my mom used to scatter in every corner. But something about it was colder, sharper, like it wasn't mine anymore, like I'd been erased. Rachel and Daniel were in the living room, casually lounging on the couches like they hadn't just buried our father 2 weeks ago. Their wine glasses clinked as they toasted to something I wasn't supposed to hear, something I'll never forget. "She doesn't deserve a dime." That voice, Rachel's, sliced right through me. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. She didn't hug me then, barely even looked at me. I figured grief made people distant, but now I saw it for what it really was. She wasn't grieving, she was celebrating. I stepped back quietly, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing I heard them. Not yet. Instead, I slipped out and drove. Nowhere in particular, just away, trying to breathe, trying to think. My mind kept circling the same question. Why? Why didn't they invite me to the will reading? Why was I suddenly invisible? Why was I being treated like I didn't belong in a family I sacrificed so much for? But deep down, I already knew. I'd always been the outsider. Growing up, Rachel was the star. Straight A's, prom queen, debate captain, mom's pride and joy. Daniel was the peacemaker. He was quiet, agreeable, always knew when to nod and stay out of trouble. And then there was me. I was different. I liked books more than people. Questioned things that weren't supposed to be questioned. I didn't chase the spotlight, and maybe that made me easy to overlook, or maybe that made me a threat. Rachel hated that Dad and I were close. I could see it in her eyes whenever he chose me to run errands with him or asked me to help in the garage. She'd plaster on that smile, but her jaw would tighten. Her compliments always had a little sting hidden inside. "You're so practical, Emily," she'd say. "It's cute how content you are with simple things." I used to wonder if I was imagining it, if maybe I was just too sensitive. But after that day, hearing her say those words, "She doesn't deserve a dime," I realized it was never in my head. It was real, and it had always been there. The truth is, when Dad got sick, nobody else stepped up. Rachel was too busy. "Important meetings," she said. Daniel would come around sometimes, but it was always quick. Drop off soup, send flowers, and leave before the silence got too heavy. But I stayed. I cooked his meals, sat with him when the pain kept him up at night. I held his hand when he couldn't form words anymore. I didn't do it for a reward. I did it because I loved him. And he knew that. That's why he gave me the envelope. That night, after the shock wore off and the anger settled into something sharper, determination, I pulled it from my drawer. My hands trembled as I opened it, my breath catching when I saw the bold legal header, Last Will and Testament of William J. Clark. The date caught my eye first. It was signed 3 weeks before he passed. My pulse quickened. This wasn't the same will Rachel and Daniel had seen. This one looked new. I ran my fingers over his signature. It was real. It was him, and it meant something had changed. I didn't know what was coming, not yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. I must have read that will a dozen times that night. Every word, every clause, every signature. It wasn't just a copy. It was official. Stamped, notarized, witnessed. My father hadn't just scribbled something down on his deathbed. He had planned this, thought it through, had it filed properly, and most importantly, he'd kept it from everyone else. Everyone but me. I didn't sleep. I just sat there in my childhood bedroom, the same pale blue walls, the same crack in the ceiling I used to stare at when I couldn't fall asleep as a kid. Only now, that room didn't feel safe. It felt like a vault of secrets, and I was the only one who had the key. The next morning, I took the will to Mr. Halberd, our longtime family lawyer. He was surprised to see me, clearly hadn't expected me to show up. His expression shifted the moment I handed him the envelope. He opened it carefully, adjusting his glasses as he scanned the pages. I watched him like a hawk, every breath tight in my chest. Then he looked up, eyes wide. This is dated after the one I read with your siblings," he said quietly. "This changes a lot." That one sentence felt like a shot of electricity. He asked me where I got it. I told him the truth, that Dad had given it to me, just in case, that I hadn't even known what it was until last night. Mr. Halberd nodded slowly, as if things were finally clicking into place. And then he said something I'll never forget. "Emily, this is the valid will." My ears were ringing. All that guilt I had carried, thinking maybe I wasn't supposed to be included, that maybe I had done something wrong, vanished, replaced by clarity, by anger, by fire. They tried to shut me out, but Dad hadn't. He made sure I had what I needed. He knew how they'd twist things. He knew Rachel. And now I had something stronger than revenge. I had truth. Later that day, I got a call from Daniel. Not Rachel. Never Rachel. Just Daniel doing what he always did. Damage control. His voice was tense, like he was trying to sound casual, but couldn't quite pull it off. "Hey, just checking in. We're finalizing some stuff with the estate today. Rachel thought it might be better if you didn't come." I could practically see him scratching his neck, avoiding eye contact even through the phone. Better if I didn't come? That was their plan, erase me, quietly, pretend I was never there. I forced a smile he couldn't see. "No worries," I said calmly. "You guys go ahead. I'll see you soon." My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. For the first time in weeks, I felt in control, not out of spite, but out of something deeper, something righteous. They were meeting at the house, Dad's house, for the final signatures. The last step before Rachel could claim control of everything, the accounts, the land, the family business. She must have thought she'd won, that her lies had been sealed with a lawyer's stamp. But she didn't know what I had. She didn't know the truth was about to walk through that front door. As I pulled into the driveway, I could see them through the window, Rachel pacing, animated. Daniel hunched over the papers, pen in hand, Mr. Halberd sitting stiffly on the couch. I took a deep breath, slipped the will into my coat pocket. My fingers were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from something that felt dangerously close to justice. And then, I opened the door. The air inside the house was thick, tense, charged, like it was holding its breath. Rachel was mid-sentence when the door clicked shut behind me. Her voice faltered. The moment she saw me standing there, her eyes narrowed and her lips pressed into that familiar, condescending smile, like I was some stray dog that had wandered into the wrong yard. "Well," she said, barely concealing her annoyance, "this is awkward." Daniel looked up from the coffee table where the final estate documents were neatly stacked. His eyes darted from me to Rachel, then back again. He didn't say anything. Of course he didn't. But Mr. Halberd? He stood. His gaze landed on the inside pocket of my coat, like he knew what I'd brought with me. His jaw tightened slightly, and for a split second I saw something in his face. Relief. Maybe even respect. Rachel scoffed. "You weren't invited, Emily." I smiled, slow and deliberate, like someone who finally had a winning hand. "Yeah," I said. "I figured that out when I heard you say I didn't deserve a dime." Her jaw twitched. "You were eavesdropping?" I took a few steps forward and laid the thick envelope gently on the table, right on top of their precious stack of paperwork. "No," I said calmly. "I was grieving, but I'm done with that now." Daniel finally spoke, his voice uncertain. What is that?" I looked directly at Rachel when I answered. "Dad's real will." The silence that followed felt endless. Rachel laughed, a sharp, forced sound that rang too loud in the stillness. "This is pathetic," she snapped. "You expect anyone to believe you just found a second will out of nowhere?" She turned to Mr. Halberd, expecting him to back her up, but he didn't. He cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and picked up the envelope with practiced care. "Actually," he said, "Emily brought this to me earlier today. It's dated 3 weeks before your father passed. Witnessed, notarized." Rachel's face went pale. Her smirk vanished, and for once she had nothing to say. Daniel leaned forward, squinting at the signature. "Wait, that's really his handwriting?" Mr. Halberd nodded. "I've already verified its authenticity. Legally, this will supersede the one we reviewed last week." Rachel stood frozen. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she might scream or cry. Maybe both. But I just stood there, watching her. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't scared. I was done. This was never about money for me. It was about being silenced, excluded, treated like I didn't matter. About watching them turn grief into greed and deciding I wouldn't let them rewrite the story my father left behind. Mr. Halberd began reading the new will aloud, and as his voice echoed through the room, I saw Rachel begin to unravel. 80% of the estate is to be transferred to Emily Clark. She gripped the back of the chair like she needed to steady herself. Daniel looked too stunned to move. "The remaining portion is to be held in a trust, with Emily as executor, to be distributed at her discretion." Rachel's eyes shot toward me, wide and panicked. "You can't do this." But her voice sounded hollow now, like even she knew she'd already lost. I met her gaze. I didn't do anything. Dad did. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't revenge. It was justice. There was something strange about the way time moved in that moment. Everything slowed down. I stood there, watching Rachel as the words from the will settled in the room like ash. No one said anything. No one could. It was like we were all frozen, caught between disbelief and recognition. It was real. My father had chosen me. Mr. Halberd cleared his throat again, his voice even but firm, continuing to read aloud. I, William J. Clark, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all prior wills and testaments. Rachel's hand shot up. Wait, her voice cracked like glass under pressure. This isn't right. He told me I'd be in charge. He promised. Her eyes were wild now. She wasn't performing anymore. She wasn't composed. She was unraveling. You must have forged this. There's no way he changed it. Not without telling me. I stayed quiet. Let her flail. Mr. Halberd didn't flinch. The signature matches all legal records. It's been verified, Miss Clark. Daniel finally spoke. I didn't know he was planning to change anything. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe he'd always thought I was weaker, quieter, easier to ignore. But not now. Now I had their full attention. And none of it felt like a victory. It felt like truth, raw and heavy, finally speaking louder than all the manipulation that had come before it. Rachel turned to me, voice low, venomous. You planned this. You played the sweet, loyal daughter while stabbing us in the back. I felt my breath catch for a second, not out of guilt, but from the sheer absurdity of it. She still didn't get it. You weren't stabbed, I said quietly. You were seen for who you are. Finally. Her lips curled. Dad didn't even like confrontation. He wouldn't do this to me. Not unless someone pushed him. I stepped closer, my voice calm but cutting. Dad watched you show up late, leave early, roll your eyes when he needed help to the bathroom. He heard you joke about inheritance while he was dying, Rachel. You did this. You gave him every reason to change his mind. The room was dead silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to pause. And then, Mr. Halberd reached into his briefcase and pulled out a letter. One more thing, he said. Your father asked me to give this to Emily when the will was read. He handed it to me gently. My hands trembled as I unfolded the page. My father's handwriting, shaky but still familiar, stretched across the paper in blue ink. Emily, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you were brave enough to do what I couldn't. You were always the one who stayed when no one else did. You never asked for anything, but I want you to have everything I can give you, not because of blood or obligation, because you earned it, and because I trust you to make it mean something. Love always, Dad. I didn't realize I was crying until the tear dropped onto the signature at the bottom of the letter. For a moment, no one moved. Rachel sat down, defeated. Daniel looked like he was about to speak, but didn't. There was nothing left to say. The truth had landed. The story was no longer theirs to twist. It was mine. And my father had made sure it stayed that way. After that day, everything changed. But not in the way I expected. Rachel tried to fight it. Of course she did. She filed a challenge to the will, dragged us through legal motions, desperate to prove it was fake. But she didn't win. She couldn't. The truth was too solid, too real. Eventually, even her lawyer advised her to drop it. Daniel sent me an email a few weeks later, short, awkward, but honest. He said he didn't know the will had been changed, that he wasn't part of Rachel's plan to exclude me, that he was sorry. I believed him. Not because I trusted him completely, but because I think guilt has a way of waking people up. We don't speak much now, but sometimes he checks in. He even visited the house once, not to claim anything, just to sit with me in the kitchen and talk about Dad. It was quiet. It was uncomfortable. But it was something. Rachel, on the other hand, disappeared. She packed up and left town. No apology, no calls, not even a text. I haven't heard from her since the court ruled in my favor. Part of me still waits for the next dramatic move, the next letter, the next explosion. But honestly, part of me hopes I never hear her voice again. It's strange, though. I thought getting the inheritance would feel like winning. It didn't. Don't get me wrong. Dad left me enough to change my life. The house, the business, the savings. I could have sold it all, started over. I thought about it more than once, but every time I stood at the front door, keys in my hand, ready to walk away, I couldn't. Because this house, this land, this was my father's legacy. And now it was mine. So instead, I stayed. I renovated the house slowly, room by room. I planted a garden where he used to sit on the porch. I turned his old workshop into a community space for local artists, something he always wanted but never got around to doing. And I set up a scholarship in his name for kids who feel invisible, kids like I used to be. Because that's the thing no one talks about when it comes to inheritance. It's not just about money or property. It's about what you do with it, how you carry it forward, how you make it matter. I didn't fight Rachel for revenge. I fought for the truth, because when someone you love dies, the last thing you want is for their memory to be twisted into something ugly. My dad wasn't perfect, but he was kind, and he believed in me when no one else did. That second will wasn't just a document. It was a message. You mattered. You were seen. You were enough. And if I've learned anything through all of this, it's that being the quiet one, the one who doesn't demand attention, doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes, we're just the ones waiting for the right moment to be heard. So to anyone who's ever been overlooked, underestimated, pushed aside by the people who were supposed to love you the most, I see you, and I hope you know your voice, your worth, your truth. It matters. Because in the end, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's just the calm before everything changes. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, know that you're not alone. Sometimes it's not the loudest voice in the room that carries the truth. It's the quiet one, the patient one, the one who never gave up. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful, true stories just like this one. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated by someone close to you?